And we have drones that are identifying people using facial recognition programs. Police in some countries are then showing up at their homes because they have been violating the quarantine. We have drones that can take the temperature of people.
All right, so in the midst of this pandemic and the restrictions that people have and what the government is doing, there's a real question, a real battle taking place between individual liberty and privacy rights and what the government is doing in the name of public safety. Julie Grant took a closer look.
This is the Volusia Sheriff's Office. Please adhere to social distancing guidelines.
Drones in the sky keeping an eye are just one of the ways we're being watched. But before we sound the surveillance alarm, giving up our privacy rights happened long before COVID-19. We asked legal expert and Duquesne University law professor Joseph Sabino Mystic for his take on the privacy debate.
Americans have rarely hesitated when asked to trade their constitutional rights for added security, added safety. We see that with public housing applicants who want to get a unit in a public housing community, and they may have to relinquish their protections against unreasonable search and seizure, the Fourth Amendment rights.
The entire country experiencing privacy changes after 9/11.
We began to see warrantless searches and warrantless wiretaps. We've seen secret courts and secret trials take place. So those represented major shifts in our degree of rights, in our rights to privacy.
COVID-19 is occurring when surveillance capabilities are at an all-time high and already all around us. Our every move can be tracked by our cell phones and our cars.
Big Brother is here, but we've invited Big Brother to come here, and now we have to deal with the negative aspects of that over time.
State officials in New Mexico are examining cell phone data to gauge social distancing.
They're just using aggregate data. We don't have any idea who any of the cell phone numbers belong to, not just in New Mexico, but nowhere in the country.
Governors have broad powers in times of emergency.
That's why this power resides with the executive, because the executive is the one branch of government that can make a swift decision, and that's what's most important in times like this.
It's clear that our aggressive strategy to slow the spread has been working and is saving countless lives.
Our leaders must balance the interests of society with our individual freedoms.
I hope we're going to have a vaccine, and we're going to fast track it like you've never seen before.
Then we'll be facing another privacy issue, whether a COVID-19 vaccine should be required.
Now, in Jacobson versus Massachusetts in 1905, the United States Supreme Court ruled that even mandatory inoculations, mandatory vaccination programs were legitimate in the interest of the safety of the community.
The court saying individual liberties are not absolute and comparing the government action to self-defense.
Just as individuals can defend themselves, the community can defend itself as well. And sometimes that takes precedence over the interests of an individual.
To put it simply, Professor Mystic says, remember the famous principle from Cicero, that the safety of the people is the supreme law.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more concerned about the Constitution and eroding rights and eroding liberties because it's the government that's jumping in to take a look at all this. And where are we right now? And what is going to happen? Let's bring back in our think tank. Eklund Mercy, are you concerned at all about eroding rights, eroding liberties, tracking our cell phone usage? And do we trust that whoever's tracking it will be a human being, is using it for the right purpose? I mean, where's the line?
there's so much wrong with this. There is no line, because not one person in that whole thing told me what they're going to do with the data. As of right now, they know exactly where people are. They're at beaches. They're in front of varsity. They're in places in crowds. So what you're telling me is like, what are you going to do with that data? We already know where they are. We already know that they're outside. What it seems like is that, and then are you going to apply it culturally? Because we see in the areas with mostly white people, they are, the officers are giving them face masks and telling them to move accordingly. And then people, places where heavily Black areas are, we have, police brutality. So it's not even, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. And then you're talking about mandatory inoculation when we don't even have a mandatory stay at home. So I need you to be consistent. Was my safety a concern before, or is my safety a concern after the vaccine? Because it's not consistent. Therefore, my constitutional rights should not be violated. You have absolutely had every right since you found out to help me to protect the people. You had it and you did not do it. And now we have the stay-at-home order that's being reduced right now. And then now you're going to tell me that, hey, this vaccine comes in, I need you to definitely take it. It's not consistent. It's not consistent.
Let's take a listen, because the professor talked to Julie about those mandated vaccines. Let's take a listen.
Mandatory vaccinations for school children are pretty much standard. However, each state approaches it in their own way. So in some states, we have exemptions for religious purposes. Some states, no exemptions for any purpose. And in some states, there are exemptions for even personal belief reasons.
Josh Schiffer, is it possible that they could mandate 320 million Americans to take a vaccine?
Absolutely, but really the core issue is the government doesn't have to mandate that. What's taken away our privacy is capitalism and profits. We have sold our information at rock bottom rates to every single electronic device we have. That marketplace is going to force people to vaccinate and to carry health papers. It's going to be, if you want to participate in a market activity, you're going to have to prove you're safe. It's going to be the boardrooms that force this. But yeah, the government can absolutely force people to get a vaccine. There will be exceptions, and I'm sure there'll be some fights. But really, it's not a hill to die on.
Lara, are you at all concerned about the eroding rights and liberties that Americans are seemingly giving up, and a lot of them giving up very willingly?
I'm always worried. I'm always concerned about the erosion of our rights, especially privacy rights. And interestingly, Americans, all of us included, when it's a time when we're scared, whether it be a 9/11 or a pandemic, we're always more willing. It's the perfect time for the government to exploit our fears and basically start slowly taking away more and more of our privacy rights. And it's in those circumstances that we see erosion of rights. And it's scary. I have to tell you, yes, over the years, maybe we have given up a lot of these rights. To see that more and more of that is going to go away, my goodness, I start wondering, are we going to be living in a brave new world where the government knows everything we're doing? And I agree. I have no idea. None of us know what's going to happen with this information. Now they say we're going to use it to protect the community, and it's for the health and safety of everyone. We're protecting the elderly, anyone whose health is compromised. But what are you really truly doing? How do I know what you're going to do with this later? How long is this going to go on for, by the way? When does it stop?
Why are we waiting for the vaccine? People are dying now. People are dying now, and they're reopening states. So when is life important? Before a vaccine or after? We literally have the tools right now to stop it right now.
But why are we even focusing on the vaccine, by the way? It's not just about vaccines. There's also cures. They can come up with a cure. I'm hoping that scientists out there are working on cures too, and we're not forced to take the vaccine.
It won't be necessary if they would just keep people in. If you want to protect my life, protect it at all times. Don't pick and choose what time you're going to protect my life. Don't pick and choose what time you're going to protect my children's life. You protected 100% because that is what you signed up for. You don't say it's okay for old people to die and it's okay for younger, it's okay for younger people to suffer. And then at the end of the day say, oh, for equal rights purposes, for the protection of the whole, we're going to have to inoculate you. It makes no sense.
Let me ask you something. Let me jump in here and throw this out. How does the Constitution play in all of this? Because where the government decides everything, I've seen that. It's called China, it's called Cuba, it's called the old Soviet Union. But they don't have the Constitution. We do. So how does the Constitution play into what the government is attempting to do and in telling us where we can go and when we can go there?
Yeah, where's my freedom? Where's my freedom to decide what I'm going to do and how to take care of my family, and balancing that against the common need of the whole population to have vaccination? There's a balance there. You can't shut down the universe. You can't.
But here's the thing. I have a right to kill somebody who goes into my house unintentionally. I have the right to kill them. I have the right to protect my home. But you could come into my body? That makes no sense. The freedom has to be consistent. So you can't say I have a right to shoot somebody who's trying to come into my house, but please feel free to put whatever you want to put into my veins. When we equally have the opportunity to shut this down, we've had plans in place to shut it down.
Absolutely unconnected. The vaccination has nothing to do with the shutdown. Vaccination is a personal sovereignty issue.
The fact that the issue is that the argument is so prevalent because the numbers are so high, so they can really push this vaccination. You're working off of fear. So you're working off of fear now because you garnered all the fear. People are dying in droves. People are in trucks. People are in bodies are in refrigerated trucks right now. Bodies are refrigerated trucks. People can't have funerals. People can't have funerals because they did not shut states down. They are opening
You're
states.
right.
They're opening beaches. So my issue is, when was my life important? Is it important now or is it important after the vaccine? Be consistent.
It's important the entire time.
But no, it isn't, because you're reopening. Here's the thing: the economic hardship should never outweigh a person's life. It should never. That's not the type of country that we live in. It should never outweigh somebody's life. So the fact that we're doing this balancing life,
but it should all of humanity. So I appreciate the sentiment, but
it's not a sentiment. There was a playbook bought by.
We shall
Obama
continue this debate.
We had
I promise you, we shall continue this debate in future programs. But for now, we got to take a short break. When we come back, folks, a lot more to talk about, including zombies.